My fiancée ran off with a gamer and stole our wedding fund. Now she begs for forgiveness. But I crushed her illusion and left her in ruins. Worked hard to give her the dream wedding, then she cheated and took everything. But I got my revenge all right. So here it goes. I still can't really wrap my head around what just happened, but I guess talking about it might help a little. So yeah, I was with Maya for 6 years. 6 years. We were solid, at least I thought we were. I mean, we had some rough patches, but who doesn't, right? We'd been together long enough to start talking about getting married, and she'd always dreamed about this perfect wedding, like the whole 9 yards, the big white dress, the fancy venue, tons of guests, all that. I loved her, so I was willing to bust my ass to make that happen. I was working these crazy hours, 12-hour shifts, and saving up every penny for the wedding. We even had a joint account set up specifically for that. We both put money into it over the years, but honestly, most of the deposits were for me. I'm not saying that to be petty, just being real. Anyway, things seemed fine until a couple months ago. So here's where things start to get fucked up. Out of nowhere, Maya gets hooked on this stupid mobile game. You know, one of those rhythm ones where you tap to some music and your character dances. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, I wasn't into it, but it wasn't hurting anyone, right? She'd play it after work and sometimes would stay up late doing it, but whatever. People unwind in different ways, or at least that's what I thought. Then, out of nowhere, she starts talking about this guy Aaron she met on the game. She tells me they've been chatting on the game's message board or whatever, and I'm like, okay, cool, she's making a friend. But as time went on, I started noticing she was spending more and more time on her phone talking to this dude and less time with me. I didn't want to be that guy, you know, the jealous boyfriend, but it just felt weird. Fast forward a few weeks, and one day she comes to me, completely serious, and says she's found a connection with this guy that we supposedly never had. I'll never forget the way she said it. Like, what the hell? We've been together 6 years, and she's saying she's got a better connection with some guy she's never met in person, someone she met through a freaking game. I tried to keep my cool and just asked her straight up what she meant by that. She said she had this chemistry with Aaron that she hadn't felt with me for a long time. You can imagine how that hit me. Like, I've been working my ass off, saving up, putting in overtime for our wedding, and suddenly she's telling me some random dude in an online game is her soulmate or whatever. I asked her if she was serious, and she said yeah. That's when I knew things were about to go downhill fast. So fast forward again. I'm working in a city far from home, still grinding out those 12-hour shifts because, you know, I still had hope at this point that we'd work things out. Maybe she was going through something, right? I wanted to believe that we could fix it. But then one night, after a long day at work, I go to check the joint account, and guess what? All the money's gone. I'm talking every last cent. Now this is the part where my stomach dropped. That account had nearly $6,000 in it. $6,000 that I'd been saving for the wedding, and it was all gone. I knew it was her. Who else could have done it? I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to figure out if this was real. Maybe it was some mistake, or maybe she needed the money for something urgent and forgot to tell me. But I knew better. I knew this was her way of saying she was done with me, done with the wedding, and done with everything we had built together. I called her right away. She didn't pick up the first few times, but I kept calling. When she finally answered, I asked her what the hell was going on. She didn't even sound sorry. She just said she needed the money and that since it was a joint account, she had the right to take it. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Just straight up said she took it because she could. I don't know if you've ever felt this before, but in that moment, I was completely numb. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just hang up. I asked her if this was about Aaron, and she said yeah, that she was planning on starting fresh. She was going to meet up with him in person and see where things go from there. I couldn't even process it. She was leaving me, someone she'd been with for 6 years, for some guy she only knew through a fucking mobile game. I tried to get her to explain more, but she just said it wasn't working between us anymore and that she needed something new. New? Really? We've been together for years, built a whole life together, and she throws it all away for something new? It felt like my entire world just collapsed in that moment. I hung up, and that's when it really hit me. She was gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. I went back to check the joint account details again, just to be sure. Yep, it was wiped clean. But here's the kicker, she took everything from our wedding fund, even though 80% of it was my money. And legally, I couldn't do anything about it because it was a joint account, and both of us had equal rights to it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was stuck in a city miles away from home, working a job I hated, and all for a wedding that was never going to happen. I kept replaying everything in my head, how we got to this point, where things went wrong. I had been doing everything I could to give her the life she wanted, and she just walked away like it meant nothing. The worst part? I still loved her. As much as it hurt, part of me still wanted to believe we could work it out. Maybe this was just a phase, right? Maybe she'd realize she was making a mistake and come back. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. She was already gone. After that night, I decided to call her dad, Mark. I wasn't sure if it was the right move, but I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her get away with draining the account like that. Mark's a decent guy, and we've always gotten along, so I figured he'd at least hear me out. When I told him what happened, he was pissed. I could hear it in his voice. He couldn't believe it either. He asked for my bank statements to see how much of the money was actually mine, and he said he'd talk to her and figure out a way to pay me back. I hung up the phone feeling a little better, knowing someone was on my side. But I knew the real fight was yet to come, so after talking to Mark, I was trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. My mind was all over the place. It wasn't just about the money, though yeah, losing that much cash stung like hell, but it was more about realizing that Maya wasn't the person I thought she was. It's like everything I thought I knew about her just got flipped upside down, and I was left there trying to pick up the pieces of what was left of my life. The next day, Mark called me again and said he had a plan to get me my money back. He didn't go into too much detail on the phone, just said we needed to have a sit down with Maya and her parents. He'd already talked to Diane, Maya's mom, and they wanted to settle everything properly. I didn't want to do it, honestly. I wasn't ready to see Maya again, not after the shit she pulled. But I also knew I needed to get my money back and figure out where we stood. I wasn't going to keep playing this game of pretending things were fine when they clearly weren't. So I agreed to the meeting, and we set it up for a couple days later at this random restaurant. I wasn't looking forward to it at all, but what choice did I have? Now, I didn't tell my parents everything that had gone down right away. I filled them in a little, but I didn't go into all the messy details. When I finally did, they were, well, let's just say not pleased is an understatement. My dad was pissed, my mom was upset that I hadn't told them sooner, and they were both telling me to just walk away, forget about the money, and move on. But I couldn't do that. 6 years, thousands of dollars, and everything we had planned, just throwing that all away didn't sit right with me. I needed closure or at least some kind of resolution. The day of the meeting rolls around, and I'm driving back to my hometown, feeling a mix of anger, nerves, and I don't know, maybe a little bit of hope. I still had that tiny part of me hoping Maya would come to her senses and realize she made a mistake. But who was I kidding, right? By the time I pulled into the restaurant parking lot, I was just ready for it to be over. When I walked in, they were already sitting at a table, Maya, her parents, and my parents. Maya looked different. I don't know how to explain it, but she had this weird distant look in her eyes, like she was there physically but not really there. She wasn't the girl I remembered, or maybe I was just seeing her for what she really was now. Either way, it felt like I was sitting down with a stranger. I sat down across from her, and it was awkward as hell. No one said anything for a solid minute. We just sat there in this uncomfortable silence. Finally, Mark broke the ice. He started talking about the money and how we could settle it. He was being reasonable, trying to work out a plan for Maya to pay me back. But Diane? Oh, she was having none of it. She cut him off mid-sentence, saying something like, why should she have to pay him back? I couldn't believe it. Diane actually tried to justify what Maya did, saying I'd wasted 6 years of her life and that Maya deserved the money for putting up with me. She literally said that Maya deserved the money. I sat there stunned. My mom gave me this look like, did you just hear what she said? And I knew we were in for a long night. Maya finally spoke up and, of course, backed her mom. She didn't apologize. She didn't say she made a mistake. She just said she needed to move on and that Aaron, yeah, the dude from the game, made her feel things I never did. I almost laughed. Like, seriously? She's going to sit there and tell me some guy she met in a mobile game was more important than everything we'd been through together? The more they talked, the angrier I got. I could feel it building inside me, and I was trying so hard to stay calm. My dad had told me before the meeting, just listen, don't react, let them talk, and you'll know what to do when the time comes. Easier said than done when they're sitting there trashing me, acting like I was the problem. Maya then tried to turn the whole thing around, making me out to be the bad guy for involving her parents. She said we should have handled this like adults and that it wasn't their business. I was like, are you kidding me? You took our money and ran off to play house with some dude from the internet, and now I'm the immature one for trying to get what's mine? Mark stepped in again, trying to calm things down. He said he didn't agree with what Maya did but that he was willing to help settle things fairly. Diane wasn't having it. She just kept saying it's her money now, like we were in some kind of divorce settlement. At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I looked straight at Maya and asked her one question. Why? That's it, just why? Why did she do it? Why throw away 6 years for someone she didn't even know in real life? She didn't even hesitate. She just shrugged and said I was unhappy. It was never going to work. That's it, no guilt, no regret, just flat out cold. I knew right then and there that I was done. Any hope I had of us working things out, of her coming back, was gone. She didn't care. She never did. After some more back and forth, Mark agreed to give me $3,000 up front and promised the rest would come in installments over the next couple months. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. We wrapped things up, and as we were leaving, Mark pulled me aside and apologized. He said he had no idea things had gotten this bad and that he was sorry for what Maya did. I appreciated it, but honestly, it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. When I got home that night, I just sat there thinking about everything that happened. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just felt empty. 6 years, and this is how it ended, over some guy she met in a game. I don't know where to go from here, but I guess I'll figure it out. All I know is that I'm not waiting around for her to realize she made a mistake. I'm done. Alright, so after that disaster of a meeting, I thought I'd feel better. You know, like at least I'd gotten some of the money back and had some sort of closure. But honestly, it felt like nothing had really changed. Sure, I wasn't out the full $6,000 anymore, but the way Maya had acted, how cold and distant she was, it was eating at me. I couldn't shake this feeling like everything I'd believed in for the last 6 years was fake. It was like I was mourning a relationship that never really existed the way I thought it did. A couple days after the meeting, I was back at work, trying to keep my mind off everything. That's when the texts started coming in nonstop, Maya first, then her friends. At first, I wasn't even reading them. I'd glance at my phone during breaks, see a wall of messages, and just ignore it. I wasn't ready to deal with it. But curiosity got the best of me eventually, and I opened a few. Maya was pissed, like really pissed. She was calling me immature for involving her dad, saying I'd embarrassed her, that I should have just talked to her directly instead of bringing her family into it. Apparently, me getting my money back was some huge betrayal to her. Imagine that, right? I'm the one betrayed, but now I'm the bad guy for making her face the consequences. Typical. She went on and on about how I didn't understand her needs and that I never supported her emotionally. I don't know what reality she's living in, but I was literally working 12-hour shifts to save for our wedding. If that's not support, I don't know what is. Her friends jumped in too, sending me messages about how I wasn't man enough for her, how Aaron was a better fit for her, and how I should just let her be happy. They acted like I was some villain standing in the way of her fairy tale love story with this online dude. I was honestly stunned. I mean, we're all adults here, but they were acting like high school bullies. I stayed quiet. I didn't respond to any of the texts. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds about me, and honestly, I didn't care enough to try and change it. But the more I stayed silent, the more aggressive the messages became. At one point, one of her friends, Tina, sent me this long rant about how Maya had been miserable for years and how she was just too scared to leave me. Apparently, the whole time we were together, Maya had been unhappy, and I just hadn't noticed. That part got to me. I won't lie. It made me question everything. Had she really been unhappy the whole time? Was I blind to it? Had I just been going through the motions while she was secretly miserable? But then I snapped out of it. No, that couldn't be right. If she was so unhappy, why didn't she ever say anything? Why go through all the motions of planning a wedding, of talking about our future together, if she was miserable? It just didn't add up. A few days later, I got a text from Mark again. This time, it was about something else entirely. He wanted to let me know that Maya had officially moved out of the apartment. We hadn't been living together for a while since I was working out of town, but this made it final. She packed up her stuff and left. Part of me was relieved, at least now I wouldn't have to deal with the awkwardness of us running into each other at the apartment. But another part of me felt like this was it, the final nail in the coffin. It's crazy how quickly things can fall apart. Here's where things got really weird though. The next day, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was Aaron. Yeah, that Aaron. At first, I thought it was a joke or maybe someone pretending to be him, but no, it was him. He introduced himself, said he was sorry for how things had gone down, and that he hoped I'd understand that he and Maya were meant to be. Meant to be? I didn't even know how to respond to that. He went on to say that he never meant to steal Maya from me and that it just happened. I could feel the anger rising again, but I kept my cool. He tried to play the victim, saying he had no control over how things unfolded and that he hoped we could be civil about everything. Like, dude, you've never even met her in person. You've only talked through a screen. But sure, you're meant to be. Give me a break. I didn't respond to him either. What was the point? I wasn't going to engage in some back and forth with a guy I didn't even know about, a relationship I wasn't a part of anymore. It was pointless. But I got to admit, seeing that message made it all feel even more surreal. I thought things couldn't get worse, but this, getting a message from the guy who'd basically ruined my life, telling me we should move on, was like adding salt to the wound. After that, I tried to focus on myself. I stopped checking my phone as much, blocked Maya and her friends on social media, and just kept my head down at work. But there was this constant feeling of emptiness, like I'd spent 6 years building this life with her, and now it was just gone. I didn't even know who I was without her. That was the hardest part. We'd been together so long that I forgot what it was like to just be me. My parents were worried about me, kept asking how I was doing, but I didn't have much to say. I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling, so I just told them I was fine. But inside, I was anything but fine. I was lost. The worst part was knowing that Maya didn't care. She'd moved on. She had Aaron now, and I was just nothing. It was like I never even mattered to her. That realization hurt more than anything. I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering what I could have done differently, how I didn't see it coming. But no matter how many times I went over it, the outcome was the same. She'd left me for someone else, and there was nothing I could do to change that. At this point, all I can do is move forward. It's not going to be easy, but I don't have much of a choice. I've got to figure out how to rebuild my life without her. It's going to take time, and I know there are going to be days when it feels impossible, but I'm done looking back. She made her choice, and now I've got to make mine. I never thought my life would turn into this kind of mess, but here we are. Hopefully things will get better from here. Only time will tell. So things were starting to settle down a bit. I mean, they weren't great, but I'd blocked Maya, Aaron, and her friends on everything, and I was doing my best to just keep my head down, focus on work, and try to move on. It wasn't easy. Honestly, it felt like I was walking around with this heavy weight on my chest all the time. But I figured the less I thought about it, the better. No point dwelling on what I can't change, right? That plan was working until one day there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't really been in touch with many people outside of work and my parents, so when I opened the door and saw Maya standing there, my heart kind of stopped for a second. I hadn't seen her since that meeting with her parents, and honestly, I wasn't ready to face her again. But there she was, standing on my doorstep like nothing had happened, like she hadn't completely wrecked my life. I didn't know what to say. My first instinct was to just shut the door in her face, but something in the way she was looking at me stopped me. She looked different, nervous, maybe even scared. It wasn't the cold, distant Maya from before. This was something else. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice quiet. I didn't want to, but for some reason, I stepped aside and let her in. Maybe part of me was still hoping for some kind of closure, or maybe I just needed to hear her admit that what she did was wrong. I don't know. She walked in, and we both stood there awkwardly for a minute. I wasn't about to offer her anything to drink or make her comfortable. She didn't deserve that after everything. I just wanted to hear what she had to say and get her out of my apartment as fast as possible. Finally, she broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I almost didn't believe it at first. Maya, the same person who had justified taking all the money, the same person who left me for a guy she never even met, was apologizing. It felt weird. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at her, waiting for her to continue. She fidgeted with her hands, something I hadn't seen her do in years. Maya was always so confident, so sure of herself. Seeing her like this was strange. "I messed up," she said, her voice shaking a little. "I know I hurt you, and I know I can't take it back, but I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I realize now that I made a mistake." A mistake? That's what she was calling it now? A mistake is spilling coffee on someone's shirt. Leaving your boyfriend of 6 years for a guy you met through a game and taking all his money, that's not a mistake. That's a choice. I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, still not saying anything. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. If she wanted to apologize, she was going to have to actually explain herself. She took a deep breath and continued. "I've been talking to Aaron, and it's not what I thought it would be. He's different than what I expected." There it was. I almost laughed. Of course Aaron wasn't living up to her expectations. What did she think was going to happen? That this random guy from the internet was going to sweep her off her feet and give her the perfect life? "I thought I knew him," she said, her voice breaking a little, "but I don't. Not really. And now I realize that I threw away everything we had for nothing." That last part stung, not because she was admitting she made a mistake, but because it felt like she was trying to paint herself as the victim here, like she was the one who got tricked by Aaron and now I should feel sorry for her. I finally spoke. You didn't throw everything away for nothing. You made a choice. You chose him. And you didn't just hurt me, you destroyed everything we had. You took the money, you lied, and you didn't even have the decency to apologize until now. So what do you want me to say, Maya? Do you expect me to just forgive you because you finally realized he's not who you thought he was? She flinched at my words, and for a second, I felt a little bad. But then I remembered everything she'd done, and that feeling was gone. No, she said, her voice soft. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. That's all. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. Part of me wanted to believe her, to think that maybe she really was sorry. But another part of me knew better. This wasn't about me. This was about her feeling guilty and trying to make herself feel better. She wasn't here to fix things. She was here to clear her conscience. I don't need your apology, I said finally. What I needed was for you to not do this in the first place. And now it's too late. You made your choice, and you're going to have to live with it. She didn't say anything after that. She just nodded, her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought she might break down right there in my apartment. But instead, she turned and walked toward the door. Before she left, she paused and looked back at me. I really did love you, you know. I didn't know how to handle everything. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say to that? She left, and I closed the door behind her, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I stood there for a while, just staring at the door, trying to make sense of everything. I'd finally gotten the apology I thought I wanted, but it didn't make me feel any better. It didn't change what happened. It didn't undo the damage she'd caused. In the end, her apology was just words, and words weren't going to fix anything. So after Maya showed up at my door with that half-hearted apology, I thought maybe that was the end of it, like she'd gotten whatever closure she needed, and I could finally start putting it all behind me. But of course, life never works that easily. For a while though, things went quiet. I didn't hear from her, Aaron, or any of her friends. No texts, no random knocks on the door. It was almost peaceful, even though I still had this pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. A few weeks passed, and I was starting to get back into some sort of routine. I was working the same long hours, but now at least I was able to focus a little more. I hadn't thought about Maya much, except in those random moments where I'd catch myself wondering what I could have done differently. But I was starting to accept that sometimes there's nothing you can do. People make their choices, and you just have to deal with the fallout. Then one day, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. I figured it was spam or some random work thing, so I ignored it at first. But when I checked it later during my lunch break, I nearly dropped my phone. It was Aaron, yeah, the guy she left me for, again. I couldn't believe it. I thought this guy was done trying to reach out after that weird apology attempt before, but nope. Here he was, sending me some long-ass message about how things between him and Maya weren't working out. He said he thought I deserved to know that they'd broken up and that he was sorry for how things had gone down. What the actual hell? I didn't even know how to react. Why did he think I cared? I mean, yeah, there was a part of me that wanted to laugh at how quickly it all fell apart for them, but mostly I just wanted him to leave me alone. I didn't respond. I wasn't about to get sucked into whatever drama was happening between them now. I blocked his number and tried to move on with my day, but it got me thinking though. Like, what was Maya doing now that her little soulmate situation blew up in her face? Was she going to try crawling back to me? Part of me was almost expecting it, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't go down that road again. I couldn't let her back in after everything she'd done. Even if she came to me, I wasn't going to be her backup plan. A couple days later, I got my answer. I was sitting at home, just zoning out in front of the TV after another long shift, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Aaron. It was Maya. She was back. I hadn't heard from her since that awkward visit, so seeing her name pop up on my screen was like a punch in the gut. I stared at the message for a while, not sure if I should open it. Part of me was curious, okay, maybe more than curious, but another part of me just wanted to delete it and move on. In the end, curiosity won out, and I opened the message. It was short, surprisingly, just a simple hey, I wanted to talk. That was it, no apology this time, no explanation, just that. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to decide how to respond. Should I ignore her? Should I tell her to fuck off? Should I hear her out? My mind was racing with 1,000 different thoughts, but in the end, I just replied with what do you want? She replied almost instantly. She said she needed to talk to me about everything, that she realized she'd messed up, and she wanted to clear the air. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea of meeting up with her again. But at the same time, I felt like maybe I needed to hear her out, if only to finally put an end to this chapter of my life. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We set up a time to meet at a coffee shop, somewhere public, neutral ground. I wasn't going to invite her back to my place, and I sure as hell wasn't going to hers. The day of the meeting came, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I kept telling myself that it didn't matter what she said, that nothing she could say would change what had happened. But still, there was that little part of me hoping she'd give me something, some reason, some closure that would make sense of it all. When I walked into the coffee shop, there she was, sitting at a table near the window. She looked different again, not nervous like before, but not the confident, self-assured Maya I'd known for years either. She looked tired. I sat down across from her, and for a moment, we just sat there in silence. It was awkward, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She finally spoke. "I'm sorry for everything." I didn't say anything. I just waited for her to continue. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, staring down at her coffee, "and I realized I didn't treat you fairly. I took advantage of you, of everything you did for me, and I was wrong." I crossed my arms, still not saying anything. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of thinking that her words were somehow making this all better. "I thought Aaron was what I wanted," she continued, her voice shaky, "but I was wrong about him. I was wrong about a lot of things." I raised an eyebrow. "So what? You're here now because things didn't work out with him, and I'm supposed to just what, forgive you?" She shook her head quickly. "No, that's not why I'm here. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand how badly I hurt you." I sat back in my chair, still not sure what to make of all this. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me was just done. I'd heard all this before, and it didn't change anything. "So now what?" I asked. "What do you want from me?" She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Nothing," she said softly. "I just wanted to apologize. That's all." I stared at her for a moment, waiting for her to say more, but she didn't. It was like she had finally run out of excuses, out of explanations, and all that was left was this. I nodded slowly. "Okay. You've apologized. Now what?" She wiped a tear from her cheek and smiled weakly. "Now I leave you alone." And with that, she stood up, gave me one last look, and walked out of the coffee shop. I sat there for a while, just staring at the empty seat across from me, feeling lighter for the first time in months. I felt like maybe I could finally move on.